So, what's the plan?
Right.
And hold it there.
2 seconds. Yeah, man, I can't really talk now. Oi!
How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Yeah, boy!
I think with any anniversary, it's a very strange feeling where it does feel like 20 years ago that Shaun of the Dead came out, but it also feels like yesterday.
It's a bizarre feeling that it's 20 years ago.
It's nice that people still give a shit, you know. I think that's my overwhelming feeling about it.
The idea that it would be still in the sort of cultural consciousness 20 years later, I mean, we didn't really think of that at all, you know.
When we made the film, like, number one, we just wanted to make a good British film, and we wanted it to come out in British cinemas and hopefully get good reviews. That was the level of our ambition.
At that time, we just wanted to see if we could get it made, you know.
It wasn't necessarily even coming out at the cinema in the United States. I think it was actually scheduled to be going straight to VHS and DVD. And then that changed.
That was obviously the first movie I ever made, and only the second thing I had ever shot as an actor, you know.
No, hey, look at me. Can I just say one more thing? I'm not going to say, there's plenty more fish in the sea. I'm not going to say if you love her, let her go. And I'm not going to bombard you with cliches. But what I will say is this. It's not the end of the world.
When me and Simon met for the first time in the mid-90s, one of the things we really bonded over was that we both loved Dawn of the Dead.
Edgar and I started to talk about zombies, and we both obviously massive fans of George, and me and Nick have been playing a lot of Resident Evil 2 in our flat in Kentish Town.
That game came out, and I remember vividly that I'd stayed up all night playing it and then thinking, I need milk to make tea, and walked across the street to the corner shop to get milk, across a completely empty, I was in Islington at the time, just completely deserted, nobody on the street, one of those mornings where you can just walk down the road. And I thought, what if zombies came now? What do I have in my flat that I could kill a zombie with? Similarly, Simon and Nick, they had their own whole plans.
You know, the whole idea of what Ed and Shaun do came from the fact that this is what Simon and I planned to do should there be a zombie invasion where we lived in Highgate, you know.
When we were making Shaun of the Dead, Spaced was a well-regarded, like, culty Channel 4 show.
I had written a zombie sequence in Spaced. I remember writing that whole scene and thinking, hey, this is a really good way for me to be able to have a zombie movie kind of experience. If I write the fact that Tim is so out of his mind on speed that he's hallucinating that he's in the game.
We had so much fun shooting that scene. Me and Simon got in a mini cab together, and I said, we should do a film. We should do a zombie film.
And then we started talking about it in terms of like,
how could we make it different from Evil Dead 2? How could we make it different from Peter Jackson's Brain Dead?
We just wanted to make a film about someone in the background. But what would they do on that day, you know?
What if I, waking up on a Sunday morning, really hungover, like had to deal with the end of the world?
And that from that idea that the film grew.
No, I haven't got any change. I didn't even have enough at the fucking shop. So. Oh, dear.
Getting it made was tough. Sort of wrangling with various production companies, taking it round, getting turned down by everyone. And
we developed the script for Film 4, and we were going to make it with Film 4, but then Film 4 in 2002, it had just ceased as a film production body, and we had to, at that point, take it around other British film companies to see if anybody else would make it. So we went round with our cap in hand to all the film companies in London, and got quite a few no's. People who were not interested or didn't quite get it or thought it was. I remember once being in one meeting, I won't mention which company. Whilst we were in the meeting, we were talking to the sort of the producer, and his sort of development executive was leafing through the pages in a really like derisive manner. And it was just this thing of like, it was such a sort of power move of like, whilst we're sitting there, he's just like leafing through the script, and then when she goes, yeah, I just feel like I've seen it before. That's like, fuck you. And then, working title, lo and behold, came in to save the day.
I was very naive at the time, and Naira Park has always been a fantastic producer in terms of shielding her talent from, worrying things. So I was quite blithely just assuming, yeah, it'll get done at some point. Whereas Edgar and Naira were kind of, worried. The actual making of the movie was fun. It was just enormous fun.
I know he's your best friend, but you do live with him.
I know.
It's not that I don't like Ed.
It's just Ed doesn't have too many friends.
Can I get any of you cunts a drink?
There were some challenges in terms of it was always like a done deal is like, I'm directing, me and Simon are co-writing, Simon is playing Shaun. So that was, everybody was okay with that. What wasn't like a done deal was Nick Frost playing Ed. Now obviously we'd written the part for Nick. Nick was Mike in Space and it was really funny. And for us, in our heads, it's like, it's Simon and Nick.
Ed was easy because Ed was who I was anyway, so I wasn't being anyone other than the person I was when I wasn't at work.
Ed is like, it's not Nick Frost, but it's like the worst that Nick Frost could be. Yeah.
So much of that film was predicated on mine and Nick's kind of personal chemistry, because we really are best friends. And so we really had to convince Working Title that that Nick could do it.
I remember once in one meeting, somebody saying, what about Jack Black playing Ed?
What? Fucking what? Oh, I'm thinking, where's he now?
This is ours and we want to make our film. We don't have a star in it. Obviously, we needed Nick to be in the movie. We did a script reading.
We got Tim and Eric from Working Tim Bevan and Eric Fellner to come to Ealing Studios, and we read the script for them. And by the end of the read-through, they were like, okay, yeah, sure.
I remember a read-through, but I didn't realise it was there was quite so much at stake. For me to have fucked that up would have been really difficult to do, because they essentially wrote words and things that I said.
We knew we wouldn't make the film without him, but we needed to just kind of like really convince them, and that script reading did it. Like Simon and Nick were so funny together, as they are in the film, that it was like, even Tim and Eric were like, okay, we get it, great.
Pete? Pete? Why don't we just go up?
No, don't go up there.
Why not?
Because A, he might be one of them, and B, he might still be annoyed.
Pete?
Maybe he went into work.
How come he didn't drive? Skis are still here.
Well, maybe he got a lift. He said he wasn't feeling very well.
Pete! Oi, prick!
He's not in.
We were very, very keen to make a British movie. I mean, we had no idea that it would ever see any kind of international release. But at the same time, it was always in the back of our minds that it might.
When Mary is in the garden, and there's the line that says,
Oh my God. She's so drunk.
I think originally it was, oh my God, she's so pissed. But pissed, we knew doesn't mean the same thing in the States. Pissed means angry.
And that was only because we were so anal. We didn't want anyone in America to think we meant she was annoyed, because that's not as funny as them thinking she was drunk. We wanted to be distinctly British, as with all the Cornetto films actually, but somehow wrap them in a sort of more American kind of filmmaking style. That was always the joke. It was the juxtaposition between, parochial Britishness and American cinema.
Okay, everyone just stay where they are. I'm going to check if the coast is clear.
Is it clear?
No.
How many?
Lots.
What we were trying to do for the money we had was ambitious. Much of the credit goes to my producers, and especially like Naira Park. You know, everybody is making the budget of that film stretch as far as it will possibly go.
I don't think the crew bargained for Edgar.
He knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he's exactly the same now.
They were expecting a kind of like meek first-time director, not someone who is so steadfast in their vision and determined to get what they wanted.
People ask me about the differences between big budget films and low budget films, and I would say it's not that different because the sun is always going to come up or go down. And like, you know, on a movie that's always like, unless you're shooting completely on a stage, if you're shooting on location, there's a point where like you're going to run out of road. The sun has come up.
I remember standing on a chair in the Winchester set, begging the crew to go over by 15 minutes so we could complete this shot, and like getting all tearful. For us, it was like, no, this is what we're doing. We're making this film and we have to complete it at all costs, and it has to be the best it can possibly be. Why don't you want to do that too?
And having lots of extras is always exciting. We got egged quite a lot during that scene by local toughs. And we had to go, like our security had to go and find local nutters from the estates, and then the local nutters then became our security, and the egging stopped.
I think the extras were promised £1, and to this day, some people say, I never got my pound. To those zombies, I'd like to apologise.
You just assume everyone cares about it as much as you do, you know? And I think by the end of it, the entire crew did.
I feel like the movie that we made was by the skin of its teeth. Very little fat, very, very few deleted scenes.
You can hear the money pouring out of the camera as you're shooting, you know, so it's like, let's just cut where the scene's going to cut, because all this is just money we're never going to use, you know.
It was very ambitious, and I'm glad that we set ourselves that sort of standard in a way, because it meant that, you know, we had to fight for certain things, and we succeeded in getting certain things that we might not have got otherwise.
I'm so sorry, sir.
Why? What have you done now?
I remember my first day meeting Bill on set, which was amazing, because I didn't know who Bill was, but he was like, Bill was my age now. Just fucking Bill talking, you know? It's like, wow, who is this? He was amazing, you know? I'd be looking at Simon thinking, what's this fucking old man saying? Like he was rapping at one point and just spitting bars. He was amazing.
He was incredibly well-respected stage and TV and some films, you know, but not the national treasure he is today. To his credit, was also one of the actors who was like, read the script and says, I got it, let's go. He like had no qualms about it at all. He said, oh, I love the script, I want to do it. So fantastic.
Now, some of these are limited.
Whoa, what was that?
I think it was Blue Monday.
And the original press out. Fuck's sake.
One of the things that really kind of inspired both of us was this idea that in the face of an apocalypse, you still like the same stuff, you're still scared of spiders. You know, your life continues even though you're faced with this huge sort of shift in reality, you know. And we always loved this idea that even in the face of a zombie apocalypse, Shaun would want to save certain records, because who knows, it might be over later on today, you know.
Edgar must have said to us, I mean, he's probably said it to us hundreds of times over the last 20 years, but particularly then, it was very much like he'd come over and he'd say, really go for it this time, really throw it, really go for it. I'm like, but they're people, they're human beings, and you want me to just throw these fucking records at their faces, you know?
And then came the whole process of clearing each album to, you know, to show them. I mean, Prince wouldn't let us show Batman, but Helen, who is Sade, she was completely cool with it. And I was so chuffed, to the point that I was in an elevator in New York with her.
Was it me and Simon, or just me, or just Simon? I can't remember. Maybe I'm telling his story now, but I definitely got in a lift once with Sade.
And you know, elevators are just really quiet and awkward.
And she got in the lift and she looked at me or us or just him, and she knew that we'd thrown it.
And I said, hey, thanks for letting me throw your record at a zombie. She went, you're welcome. It was such a wonderful moment.
When he walks to the shop and then slips on the blood on the way out, there is no blood on the floor. We couldn't trying to do 8 Steadicam takes on the first day, couldn't afford the time to redress the set. And also, both Simon and the Steadicam operator would be walking along, so you're creating a hazard because the Steadicam operator could slip over the blood as well. So it was not possible.
The sound department are as much as responsible for that moment as I am, because it's all in the noise. It's all in that little. I wish he hadn't told me that, because I always think that when Shaun puts his feet up on the table when he gets back and sits with Ed, that there's no blood on the bottom of his feet. Now, it could conceivably have been wiped off as he walked back, but I always thought they're so prominent in shot, it would have been great to see, like, an eyeball on his shoe or something. And then next thing you know, it's the special editions.
It's been a funny sort of day, hasn't it?
Oh, no. Mum, come on. Stop it. Don't, Mum, please, don't go.
I think the last time I watched it, the Barbara scene really choked me up. And we, I co-wrote it. But I think getting older, it was affecting me a lot more than maybe when we wrote it. I mean, it affected Simon at the time. That Barbara scene, when Simon's like crying in that scene and he's really emotional, that's not all acting.
Even though we were pretending these emotions, it actually was real, So I think a few times Simon and I would just step off set and just cry for a bit, because I didn't realise that just because you're acting doesn't mean your body thinks that you actually are within this emotion,
Do you want anything from the shop?
Cornetto.
The reason that he asked for a cornetto, and it was no other suggestion at that point, was when I was at art college. I remember once I was really, really hungover after a house party, like terribly, terribly hungover, and I went into a corner shop and had a cornetto and felt so much better. I guess just the sugar had sort of like got some blood sugar in me.
And it was just a throwaway joke. The whole thing was just a throwaway joke. The idea that is what you would want at 8 a.m. in the morning, whatever time it is Shaun gets up.
The reason that the cornettos were in Hot Fuzz was because at the Shaun of the Dead premiere party, we had a premiere at the View West End. Somebody from Universal had booked like a cornetto stand. There was basically somebody handing out free cornettos on the way out.
We were like, wow, this is amazing, We should put one in the next film.
It was like, hey, if we put a cornetto into Hot Fuzz as well, maybe we'll get more free ice cream at the premiere. And then it becomes a thing. And then people ask us, is it true you're doing a third cornetto film? So it was just an offhand joke.
It was just us trying to get free ice cream.
The irony is, at the Hot Fuzz premiere, there were no cornettos. What the fuck happened there?
I spent an entire life, look at me. I've spent my entire life sticking my neck out for you, and all you ever do is fuck things up and make me look stupid. Well, I'm not going to let you do it anymore. Not today!
Shaun.
Oh.
There were several moments that we felt like it was breaking out and becoming something bigger. I always remember the day that I felt like the world was getting smaller was when me and Simon got a call from George Romero, who was one of the first people to see the film that had influenced it. I think he was on holiday in Florida at the time and got a print to a cinema in Florida where apparently George Romero watched it on his own.
And so we were so nervous when George watched it because we wanted him to like it so much.
Now, this is before the days of doing kind of group calls and stuff. So I think he called Simon first and then he called me. And I remember where I was standing. He was like, oh man, I had such a blast. I loved it. I loved Bill Nighy.
And we talked and He was so lovely and so kind of like, he genuinely seemed touched by it. And I remember going into this huge kind of like, hey, listen, I know Philip kind of wakes up pretty quickly and it takes like Roger like a few hours before he comes around, but we didn't really have the time. I was sort of apologizing for sort of like messing with his lore a little bit. And he went, you know what, Simon, I didn't mind. And I was like, yes.
He was flattered that we'd actually reached out, because I think probably many people who, you know, kind of take inspiration from him don't do that. And I think I think he was actually moved that we'd bothered to get in touch and really wanted his approval. That was the start of things starting to really change, is that like we had now sort of broken contact into sort of people that were our heroes, especially when we started to press in other countries. And it was the year the world got a little bigger and smaller at the same time.
We did like a massive tour in America of Shaun of the Dead, and we went, and it was fucking crazy. We kind of did like, I want to say like 25 cities in 30 days, or it was really tough. But every night we went and screened the film, and people loved it. People really loved it.
We went to Comic-Con. It's probably the first US press that we ever did, and that must have been July 2004. I remember me and Simon were standing at the side of the stage waiting to come on, and they were watching it, and it was getting like massive laughs. And at some point I turned to Simon, we were like looking at each other because the American audience were going crazy. And at one point I looked at him and I said, it's not that funny.
Jonathan Ross pat me on the back when we came out. I was like, who's fucking Jonathan Ross?
When I arrived in LA for the sort of ArcLight premiere of Shaun, and I walked into that courtyard in front of the ArcLight, and Edgar was sat with Tarantino. And that was just like, holy shit, you know? And he was kind of so complimentary about the movie, and Eli as well, Eli Roth, and we had an amazing night.
The whole thing, the whole shoot was amazing. It felt just free and fun, and everyone had a nice time, and you know, we got to make a film on film in where we lived. We felt like fucking kings. It was amazing. All that time we spent in pubs or in our houses fucking around, getting drunk and being friends, you know, that meant something. And it it completely changed my life.
You hope as an artist that you whatever you create will have some longevity, will stay in the cultural subconscious for as long as it possibly can, and not just evaporate. You know, you want longevity and you want to have influence. And I think of the films that I love and I regard as classic, you know, and think maybe someone thinks the same way about our film. I don't think you can get higher sort of praise, really. It's really gratifying. And I'm very grateful.
You know, sometimes there's films that you know, maybe something you've done that you can't escape, but Shaun has never gone away, and I don't mind at all because I'm so proud of it.
I'll be like a skeleton in a hospice, and I'll have to do like a Zoom Q&A for the 80th anniversary. We'll never be allowed to die.
Player 2 has entered the game.
Ed!